The soul and the sidereal man. Man is a threefold ordered being comprised of spirit, soul, and physical body. His spirit is the divine spirit, eternal. It is the living Elohim that involves itself in the consciousness of man, and the consciousness or soul evolves itself according to its desires, loves, and emotions. Spirit might be illustrated as a perpetually active intelligence that brings man through travail, age, infirmity, birth, death, while learning creative law, and that he may make matter reply to his will. The soul of man is often likened to the two-faced Janus, the Roman god. It turns to matter, the corruptible and temporal, and again to spirit, the incorruptible and eternal. When the soul of man turns its face and forgets its divinity, suffering and limitation is the result. Man then becomes a child of circumstance and sorrow. He forgets his mission here, and so dwelling in his finite mind, he finds himself a slave, ever bound by his own forged chains. We all have to travel the same path. How are you? Good for you. We all have to travel the same path, all learn the same lessons, and how far we have progressed is registered by the silent watchers above in their grand resolutions. When the consciousness of man recognizes the true self, or his divine nature, he is at once comes under his higher influences. But when man is full of material longing, invisibly he links himself to lesser orders of life, with the attendant struggles and limitations. The soul is the link between the spirit and the physical body. Many mystics speak of this threefold man. Paul, in 1 Ephesians, has indicated man as an entirety, the spirit, the soul, and the body. Irenaeus says, there are three things of which the entire man consists, namely, the flesh, soul, and spirit. The spirit giveth form, the other the flesh receiving form. The soul is the intermediate between the two. Sometimes it follows that the flesh, and so falls into earthly desire, and, of course, living. Origen likewise adds, if the soul renounce the flesh and join the spirit, it will itself become spiritual. But if it cast down to the desires of the flesh, it will generate into the body. So, the soul is linked on the phenomenal physical side of life and the emotional or spiritual side of life. If this selfhood dwells alone in the sense the powers are earthly and the animal, the moral character suffers and man then lacks spiritual insight. Let the soul of man turn to the ideal and the spiritual. Then the body becomes plastic to the will and self-revelation follows. The soul of man, in its truest activity, desires to give that which it receives from the spirit, that is beauty, goodness, and spiritual idealism. Matter, in the forms of man, is maintained by receiving. It is death to matter to give. In this giving and receiving of the soul, we see the will in constant operation, in exercising a kind of selective function. Will, memory, and reflection are the functions of the soul, and these are registered in an unseen color body around the physical body. This body is, as it were, an instantaneous photograph of the invisible astral currents that play upon our earth. At the time of birth, and are moved into brighter or darker shades by man's will and imaginations. This is what the alchemists refer to as a tincture. Living largely in the active external world, we fail to appreciate these finer forces. If they seem intangible and are invisible, they are nonetheless vital and formative. It is through this finer body that the seen physiological functioning first takes place. We select at our birth these unseen necessary materials. As the speech is recorded on a tin foil of the phonograph, so are our likes and dislikes registered on the fine, tenuous substance. The fine, tenuous-like substance. If the mind loves purity alone, the finer vibrations of this body directed superintend and control the shorter, darker currents. If any mental disturbances take place, there is at once a recombining, condensing process starting up in the odic body, and the disturbance will shortly be seen and felt in the physical body. Man's will moves according to its force and spiritual fineness in this primordial astral ether. When this will is strong enough, we conceive divinity and become God conscious. This immaculate conception is the birthright of all men. How far each has progressed is dependent on the quality of will exercised. We can never truly put the blame of our limitations to any cause except through our own will. The ethereal sphere is exactly like the sidereal vibrations of birth, and clothe the body until death ensures. It endows the body with sensation. Is the function through which the mind and will act. It changes its color and tone, just as man changes his thought, is light or dark, fine or gross, active or passive, according to the ruling thought of the individual. Essentially, it is the mirror of the mind, sometimes clouded, and again vibrant in its luminosity. It is through this nebulous-like aura we catch impressions and dimly sense the presence of moving objects in the dark. When a little space away, this living garment is in fact a body of thought and acts as a projection and often a moral guide to the soul, the attraction or antipathy of a companion, the fitness or unfitness of a person in our lives that cannot well be described, has its occult action in this body. Nature abundantly supplies in her astral rays all kinds of elements possible, leaving with the soul that selection it shall draw unto itself. There is an aptness that shows absolute justice in the circumstances and exegeses of life. I'll read that again. There is an aptness that shows absolute justice in the circumstances and exigencies of life. Amidst all diversities, the same law reigns over the just and the alike. Let me read that again. Amidst all diversities, the same law reigns over the just and the unjust alike. We choose our garb at birth and can change it or wear it, but the will must first learn to act through universal love. On entering physical incarnation, the soul is compelled by a grand mystical law to draw atom by atom from nature's existing elements, which are 7 in number. 7 rays there are, or 7 states that are comparable to the 7-fold colors, notes, and planets, the planetary forces. These principles are ever active in the universe and represent the spiritual processes at work in creation, whether it be the building of a universe, a man, or a moner. Jacob Boehm the mystic and illumined seer, writing on these principles, declares all the 7 principles are spiritual within eternal nature and appear there in a clear, crystalline, translucent substantiality. The 7 candlesticks in St. John's Revelation refer to the 7 spirits of the Godhead, also the 7 stars. The 7 spirits are in the center of the Father, that is to say, in the power of the world. It is the planetary correspondence the law is seen so grandly operative. When baby is born, he is living photograph of these 7 principles. Every line and feature corresponds to the play of these rays. Every tiny impulse and action appears to be regulated by the radiant vibrations playing around it. And so, with the mature man, he is sun, moon, and planets in miniature. The same 7 acting elements are in every object in nature. We select our planetary seasons by the wise law, fitting to the soul on its path of evolution and progress. This is seen in the spiritual understanding of the horoscope. The most active colors are seen around the brain centers, and where the nervous system in the physical body is most active. Waves from the brain and body differ in form, length, and height according to the faculty from which they irradiate. Thoughts and feelings express their distinctive shapes upon the outflowing waves of the body, and also show the nerve light as a distinctive color. Memory always has a constructive waves. Religious thought or a person always being a hooked wave. The following are the colors radiating from different qualities of thoughts. Reception gives emerald. Perception gives gray. Reflection gives azure. Religion gives lemon. Retention gives blue. Parentation gives amber. Sexation gives orange. Coaction gives scarlet. Sensation gives salmon. Definition gives red. Ambition gives crimson. Impulsion gives maroon. Every cell, tissue, and organ receives these currents, and according to their color, length, height, and form, they bring but different poles of action in different organs and functions of the body. So we see the true spiritual thoughts start out healing waves toward the body and brings a vital force into all departments of man's being. It is knowledge, therefore, of the soul that we must come into a terrestrial world of harmony, which is ever ready to energize us within if we will. When the soul, through the will of man, gets control over mind, body, and speech, and wishes and desires no evil, then finer senses are born, and he will find that his thought becomes indescribably effective. A deeper sense, a deeper strength, and satisfaction is gained when we view nature for her lessons, for there is found the principle of continuous growth. We see life to be a continuous orderly growth, bringing into manifestation higher and still higher expressions of the Spirit, all harmoniously related. The law of the Lord is perfect, converting the soul. The testimony of the Lord is sure, making wise the simple.